The Tales of the Laxdale Saga is brought to you by NotaProfit.org, the place on the internet to find spiritual guidance powered by artificial intelligence. The Laxdale Saga, Part 8, Chapter Roman 47, Kjartan goes to Laugar, and of the bargain for tongue, A.D. 1003 after Yule that winter. Kjartan got men together, and they mustered 60 men altogether. Kjartan did not tell his father the reason of his journey, and Olaf asked but little about it. Kjartan took with him tents and stores, and rode on his way until he came to Laugar. He bade his men get off their horses, and said that some should look after the horses, and some put up the tents. At that time it was the custom that outhouses were outside, and not very far away from the dwelling house, and so it was at Laugar. Kjartan had all the doors of the house taken, and forbade all the inmates to go outside, and for 3 nights he made them do their errands within the house. After that Kjartan rode home to Herdholt, and each of his followers rode to his own home. Olaf was very ill, pleased with this raid, but Thorgerd said there was no reason for blame, for the men of Laugar had deserved this, yea, and a still greater shame. Then Hrefna said, "Did you have any talk with any one at Laugar, Kjartan?" He answered, there was but little chance of that, and said he and Bolli had exchanged only a few words. Then Hrefna smiled and said, "It was told me as truth that you and Gudrun had some talk together, and I have likewise heard how she was arrayed, that she had herself with the head, dress, and it suited exceeding well." Kjartan answered, and coloured up, and it was easy to see he was angry with her for making a mockery of this. "Nothing of what you say, Hrefna, passed before my eyes, and there was no need for Gudrun to coif herself with the head dress to look statelier than all other women." Thereat Hrefna dropped the talk. The men of Laugar bore this exceedingly ill, and thought it by much a greater and worse disgrace than if Kjartan had even killed a man or 2 of them. The sons of Osvif were the wildest over this matter, but Bolli quieted them rather. Gudrun was the fewest spoken on the matter, yet men gathered from her words that it was uncertain whether any one took it as sorely to heart as she did. Full enmity now grows up between the men of Laugar and the Herdholtings, as the winter war on Hrefna gave birth to a child, a boy, and he was named Asger. Thorarin, the goodman of Tongue, let it be known that he wished to sell the land of Tongue. The reason was that he was drained of money, and that he thought ill will was swelling too much between the people of the countryside, he himself being a friend of either side. Bolli thought he would like to buy the land and settle down on it, for the men of Laugar had little land and much cattle. Bolli and Gudrun rode to Tongue at the advice of Osvif. They thought it a very handy chance to be able to secure this land so near to themselves, and Osvif bade them not to let a small matter stand in the way of a covenant. Then they, Bolli and Gudrun, bespoke the purchase with Thorarin, and came to terms as to what the price should be, and also as to the kind wherein it should be paid, and the bargain was settled with Thorarin, but the buying was not done in the presence of witnesses, for there were not so many men there at the time as were lawfully necessary. Bolli and Gudrun rode home after that. But when Kjartan Olafsson hears of these tidings, he rides off with 12 men, and came to Tongue early one day. Thorarin greeted him well, and asked him to stay there. Kjartan said he must ride back again in the morning, but would tarry there for some time. Thorarin asked his errand, and Kjartan said, "My errand here is to speak about a certain sale of land that you and Bolli have agreed upon, for it is very much against my wishes if you sell this land to Bolli and Gudrun." Thorarin said that to do otherwise would be unbecoming to him, for the price that Bolli has offered for the land is liberal, and is to be paid up speedily. Kjartan said, "You shall come in for no one os even if Bolli does not buy your land, for I will buy it at the same price, and it will not be of much avail to you to speak against what I have made up my mind to have done. Indeed, it will soon be found out that I shall want to have the most to say within this countryside, being more ready, however, to do the will of others than that of the men of Laugar." Thorarin answered, Mighty to me will be the master's word in this matter. But it would be most to my mind that this bargain should be left alone, as I and Bolli have settled it. Kjartan said, I do not call that a sale of land which is not bound by witnesses. Now you do one of two things, either sell me the lands on the same terms as you agreed upon with the others, or lie on your land yourself. Thorarin chooses to sell him the land, and witnesses were forthwith taken to the sale, and after the purchase Kjartan rode home. That same evening this was told at Laugar. Then Gudrun said, It seems to me, Bolli, that Kjartan has given you two choices somewhat harder than those he gave Thorarin, that you must either leave the countryside with little honour, or show yourself at some meeting with him a good deal less slow than you have been heretofore. Bolli did not answer, but went forthwith away from this talk. All was quiet now throughout what was left of Lent. The third day after Easter Kjartan rode from home with one other man, and the black, for a follower. They came to Tongue in the day. Kjartan wished Thorarin to ride with them to Sowerby to gather in debts due to him, for Kjartan had much money at call in these parts. But Thorarin had ridden to another place. Kjartan stopped there a while, and waited for him. That same day Thorhalla the chatter box was come there. She asked Kjartan where he was minded to go. He said he was going west to Sowerby. She asked, Which road will you take? Kjartan replied, I am going by Sailingsdale to the west, and by Swinedale from the west. She asked how long he would be. Kjartan answered, Most likely I shall be riding from the west next Thursday, the 5th day of the week. Would you do an errand for me? Said Thorhalla. I have a kinsman west at Whitedale in Sowerby. He has promised me half a mark's worth of homespun, and I would like you to claim it for me, and bring it with you from the west. Kjartan promised to do this. After this Thorarin came home, and betook himself to the journey with them. They rode westward over Sailingsdale Heath, and came to Hall in the evening to the brothers and sister there. There Kjartan got the best of welcomes, for between him and them there was the greatest friendship. Thorhalla the chatterbox came home to Laugar that evening. The sons of Osvif asked her who she had met during the day. She said she had met Kjartan Olafsson. They asked where he was going. She answered, telling them all she knew about it, and never has he looked braver than now. And it is not wonderful at all that such men should look upon everything as low beside themselves. And Thorhalla still went on, and it was clear to me that Kjartan liked to talk of nothing so well as of his land bargain with Thorarin. Gudrun spoke. Kjartan may well do things as boldly as it pleases him, for it is proven that for whatever insult he may pay others, there is none who dares even to shoot a shaft at him. Present at this talk of Gudrun and Thorhalla were both Bolli and the sons of Osvif. Ospak and his brothers said but little, but what there was, rather stinging for Kjartan, as was always their way. Bolli behaved as if he did not hear, as he always did when Kjartan was spoken ill of, for his wont was either to hold his peace or to gainsay them. Chapter XLVIII. The men of Laugar and Gudrun plan an ambush for Kjartan. A.D. 1003. Kjartan spent the 4th day after Easter at Hall, and there was the greatest merriment and gaiety. The night after Anne was very ill at ease in his sleep, so they waked him. They asked him what he had dreamt. He answered, A woman came to me most evil-looking, and pulled me forth unto the bedside. She had in one hand a short sword, and in the other a trough. She drove the sword into my breast, and cut open all the belly, and took out all my inwards, and put brushwood in their place. After that she went outside. Kjartan and the others laughed very much at this dream, and said he should be called an brushwood belly. And they caught hold of him, and said they wished to feel if he had the brushwood in his stomach. Then Aud said, There is no need to mock so much at this, and my counsel is that Kjartan do one of two things, either tarry here longer, or, if he will ride away, then let him ride with more followers hence than hither he did. Kjartan said, You may hold in brushwood belly a man very sage as he sits and talks to you all day, since you think that whatever he dreams must be a very vision, but go I must, as I have already made up my mind to, in spite of this dream. Kjartan got ready to go on the 5th day in Easter week, and at the advice of Aud, so did Thorkel whelp and Nut his brother. They rode on the way with Kjartan, a band of 12 together. Kjartan came to Whitedale and fetched the homespun for Thorhalla Chatterbox, as he had said he would. After that he rode south through Swinedale. It is told how at Laugar in sailing, Dale Gudrun was early afoot directly after sunrise. She went to where her brothers were sleeping. She roused Ospak, and he woke up at once, and then two the other brothers. And when Ospak saw that there was his sister, he asked her what she wanted, that she was up so early. Gudrun said she wanted to know what they would be doing that day. Ospak said he would keep at rest, for there is little work to do. Gudrun said, "You would have the right sort of temper if you were the daughters of some peasant, letting neither good nor bad be done by you. Why, after all the disgrace and shame that Kjartan hath done to you, you none the less lie quietly sleeping, though he rides past this place with but one other man. Such men indeed are richly endowed with the memory of swine. I think it is past hoping that you will ever have courage enough to go and seek out Kjartan in his home, if you dare not meet him now that he rides with but one other man or two. But here you sit at home and bear yourselves as if you were hopeful men. Yea, in sooth there are too many of you." Ospak said she did not mince matters, and it was hard to gainsay her, and he sprang up forthwith and dressed, as did also each of the brothers one after the other. Then they got ready to lay an ambush for Kjartan. Then Gudrun called on Bolli to bestir him with them. Bolli said it behoved him not for the sake of his kinship with Kjartan, set forth how lovingly Olaf had brought him up. Gudrun answered, "Therein you speak the truth, but you will not have the good luck always to do what pleases all men, and if you cut yourself out of this journey, our married life must be at an end." And through Gudrun's harping on the matter, Bolli's mind swelled at all the enmity and guilts that lay at the door of Kjartan, and speedily he donned his weapons, and they grew a band of 9 together. There were the 5 sons of Ospak, Helgi, Vandrad, Tored, and Thorolf. Bolli was the 6th in Gudlog, the son of Osvif's sister, the hopefullest of men, the 7th. There were also Aud and Stein, sons of Thorhalla Chatterbox. They rode to Swinedale, and took up their stand beside the gill which is called Goat-gill. One, they bound up their horses and sat down. Bolli was silent all day, and lay up on the top of the gill bank. Now when Kjartan and his followers were come south past Narrowsound, where the dale begins to widen out, Kjartan said that Thorkel and the others had better turn back. Thorkel said they would ride to the end of the dale. Then when they came south past the out, Derries called North Derries Kjartan spake to the brothers, and bade them not to ride any farther. "Thorolf the thief," he said, "shall not have that matter to laugh at, that I dare not ride on my way with few men." Thorkel whelp said, "We will yield to you in not following you any farther, but we should rue it indeed not to be near if you should stand in need of men today." Then Kjartan said, "Never will Bolli, my kinsman, join hands with plotters against my life. But if the sons of Osvif lie in wait for me, there is no knowing which side will live to tell the tale, even though I may have some odds to deal with." Thereupon the brothers rode back to the west. Chapter Roman 49. The death of Kjartan. Now Kjartan rode south through the dale, he and they 3 together, himself and the Black and Thorarin. Thorkel was the name of a man who lived at Peaks in Swinedale, where now there is waste land. He had been seeing after his horses that day, and a shepherd of his with him. They saw the 2 parties, the men of Laugar in ambush, and Kjartan and his where they were riding down the dale 3 together. Then the shepherd said they had better turn to meet Kjartan and his. It would be, quoth he, a great good hap to them, if they could stave off so great a trouble as now both sides were steering into. Thorkel said, "Hold your tongue at once. Do you think, fool as you are, you will ever give life to a man to whom fate has ordained death? And, truth to tell, I would spare neither of them from having now as evil dealings together as they like. It seems to me a better plan for us to get to a place where we stand in danger of nothing, and from where we can have a good look at their meeting, so as to have some fun over their play, for all men make a marvel thereof, how Kjartan is of all men the best skilled at arms. I think you will want it now, for we too know how overwhelming the odds are, and so it had to be as Thorkel wished. Kjartan and his followers now rode on to Goat-gill. On the other hand, the sons of Osvif misdoubt them, why Bolli should have sought out a place for himself, from where he might well be seen by men riding from the west. So they now put their heads together, and being of one mind that Bolli was playing them false, they go for him up unto the brink, and took to wrestling and horse, playing with him, and took him by the feet, and dragged him down over the brink. But Kjartan and his followers came up apace as they were riding fast, and when they came to the south side of the gill, they saw the ambush, and knew the men. Kjartan at once sprung off his horse, and turned upon the sons of Osvif. There stood near by a great stone, against which Kjartan ordered they should wait the onset, he and his. Before they met, Kjartan flung his spear, and it struck through Thorolf's shield above the handle, so that therewith the shield was pressed against him, the spear piercing the shield and the arm, above the elbow, where it sundered the main muscle, Thorolf dropping the shield, and his arm being of no avail to him through the day. Thereupon Kjartan drew his sword, but he held not the king's gift. The sons of Thorhalla went at Thorarin, for that was the task allotted to them. That outset was a hard one, for Thorarin was mightily strong, and it was hard to tell which would outlast the other. Osvif's sons and Gudlog set on Kjartan, they being 5 together, and Kjartan and An but 2, and warded himself valiantly, and would ever be going in front of Kjartan. Bolli stood aloof with footbitter. Kjartan smote hard, but his sword was of little avail, and bent so. He often had to straighten it under his foot. In this attack both the sons of Osvif and An were wounded, but Kjartan had no wound as yet. Kjartan fought so swiftly and dauntlessly that Osvif's sons recoiled and turned to where An was at that moment, and fell, having fought for some time, with his inwards coming out. In this attack Kjartan cut off one leg of Gudlog above the knee, and that hurt was enough to cause death. Then the 4 sons of Osvif made an onset on Kjartan, but he warded himself so bravely that in no way did he give them the chance of any advantage. Then spake Kjartan, kinsman Bolli, why did you leave home if you meant quietly to stand by? Now the choice lies before you, to help one side or the other, and try now how footbitter will do. Bolli made as if he did not hear, and when Ospak saw that they would know how bear Kjartan over, he egged on Bolli in every way, and said he surely would not wish that shame to follow after him, to have promised them his aid in this fight, and not to grant it now. Why, heavy enough in dealings with us was Kjartan then, when by none so big a deed as this we had offended him. But if Kjartan is now to get away from us, then for you, Bolli, as even for us, way to exceeding hardships will be equally short. Then Bolli drew footbitter, and now turned upon Kjartan. Then Kjartan said to Bolli, surely thou art minded now, my kinsman, to do a dastard's deed. But oh, my kinsman, I am much more fain to take my death from you than to cause the same to you myself. Then Kjartan flung away his weapons, and would defend himself no longer. Yet he was but slightly wounded, though very tired with fighting. Bolli gave no answer to Kjartan's words, but all the same he dealt him his death wound, and straightway Bolli sat down under the shoulders of him, and Kjartan breathed his last in the lap of Bolli. Bolli rued at once his deed, and declared the manslaughter due to his hand. Bolli sent the sons of Osvif into the countryside, but he stayed behind together with Thorarin by the dead bodies. And when the sons of Osvif came to Laugar, they told the tidings. Gudrun gave out her pleasure thereat, and then the arm of Thorolf was bound up. It healed slowly, and was never after any use to him. The body of Kjartan was brought home to Tongue, but Bolli rode home to Laugar. Gudrun went to meet him, and asked what time of day it was. Bolli said it was near noontide. Then spake Gudrun, harm spurs on to hard deeds work. I have spun yarn for 12 ells of homespun, and you have killed Kjartan. Bolli replied, That unhappy deed might well go late from my mind, even if you did not remind me of it. Gudrun said, Such things I do not count among mishaps. It seemed to me you stood in higher station during the year Kjartan was in Norway than now, when he trod you under foot when he came back to Iceland, but I count that last which to me is dearest, that Hrefna will not go laughing to her bed tonight. Then Bolli said, and right wroth he was, I think it is quite uncertain that she will turn paler at these tidings than you do, and I have my doubts as to whether you would not have been less startled if I had been lying behind on the field of battle, and Kjartan had told the tidings. Gudrun saw that Bolli was wroth, and spake, Do not upbraid me with such things, for I am very grateful to you for your deed. For now, I think I know that you will not do anything against my mind. After that, Osvif's sons went and hid in an underground chamber, which had been made for them in secret, but Thorhala's sons were sent west to Holy, fell to tell Snorri Godi the priest these tidings, and therewith the message that they bade him send them speedily all availing strength against Olaf and those men to whom it came to follow up the blood. Suit after Kjartan. At Laxdale Tongue it happened, the night after the day on which the fight befell, that and sat up, he who they had all thought was dead. Those who waked the bodies were very much afraid, and thought this a wondrous marvel. Then and spake to them, I beg you, in God's name, not to be afraid of me, for I have had both my life and my wits all unto the hour when on me fell the heaviness of a swoon. Then I dreamed of same woman as before, and methought she now took the brushwood out of my belly, and put my own inwards in instead, and the change seemed good to me. Then the wounds that En had were bound up, and he became a hale man, and was ever afterwards called En Brushwood, belly. But now when Olaf Hoskald's son heard these tidings, he took the slaying of Kjartan most sorely to heart, though he bore it like a brave man. His sons wanted to set on Bolli forthwith, and kill him. Olaf said, Far be it from me, for my son is none the more atoned to me though Bolli be slain. Moreover, I loved Kjartan before all men, but as to Bolli, I could not bear any harm befalling him. I see a more befitting business for you to do. Go ye and meet the sons of Thorhala, who are now sent to Holy, fell with the errand of summoning up a band against us. I shall be well pleased for you to put them to any penalty you like. Then Olaf's sons swiftly turned to journeying, and went on board a ferry boat that Olaf owned, being 7 of them together, and rowed out down XLVIII Firth, pushing on their journey at their lustiest. They had but little wind, but fair what there was, and they rowed with the sail until they came under Scoresel, where they tarried for some while, and asked about the journeyings of men thereabouts. A little while after they saw a ship coming from the west across the firth, and soon they saw who the men were, for there were the sons of Thorhala, and Halldor and his followers boarded them. Straightway they met with no resistance, for the sons of Olaf leapt forthwith on board their ships, and set upon them. Stein and his brother were laid hands on, and beheaded overboard. The sons of Olaf now turned back, and their journey was deemed to have sped most briskly. Chapter L. The end of Hrefna. The peace settled. A.D. 1003 Olaf went to meet Kjartan's body. He sent men south to Berg to tell Thorstein Egilson these tidings, and also that he would have his help for the blood suit, and if any great men should band themselves together against him with sons of Osvif, he said he wanted to have the whole matter in his own hands. The same message he sent north to Willowdale, to Gudmund, his son-in-law, and to the sons of Asger, with the further information that he had charged as guilty of the slaying of Kjartan all the men who had taken part in the ambush, except Osbak, son of Osvif, for he was already under outlawry because of a woman who was called Aldis, the daughter of Homganga, Jot of Ingjelds, and their son was Ulf, who later became a marshal to King Harald Sigurdsson, and had for wife Jorun, the daughter of Thorberg. Their son was John, father of Erlend the Laggard, the father of Archbishop Eystein. Olaf had proclaimed that the blood suit should be taken into court at Thorness Thing. He had Kjartan's body brought home, and a tent was rigged over it, for there was as yet no church built in the dales. But when Olaf heard that Thorstein had bestirred him swiftly, and raised up a band of great many men, and that the Willowdale men had done likewise, he had men gathered together throughout all the dales, and a great multitude they were. The whole of this band Olaf sent to Laugar with this order: It is my will that you guard Bolli if he stand in need thereof, and do it no less faithfully than if you were following me, for my mind misgives me that the men from beyond this countryside, whom, coming soon, we shall be having on our hands, will deem that they have somewhat of a loss to make up with Bolli. And when he had put the matter in order in this manner, Thorstein with his following, and also the Willowdale men, came on, all wild with rage. Hall Gudmund's son and Calf Asgjerson egged them on most to go and force Bolli to let search be made for the sons of Osvif till they should be found, for they could be gone nowhere out of the countryside. But because Olaf set himself so much against their making a raid on Laugar, messages of peace were borne between the two parties, and Bolli was most willing, and bade Olaf settle all terms on his behalf, and Osvif said it was not in his power to speak against this, for no help had come to him from Snorri the priest. A peace meeting, therefore, took place at Leash, Oz, and the whole case was laid freely in Olaf's hand. For the slaughter of Kjartan there were to come such fines and penalties as Olaf liked. Then the peace meeting came to an end. Bolli, by the counsel of Olaf, did not go to this meeting. The award should be made known at Thornus Thing. Now the Merrymen and Willowdale men rode to Herdholt. Thorstein Kuggason begged for Asgeir, son of Kjartan, to foster, as a comfort to Hrefna. Hrefna went north with her brothers, and was much weighed down with grief. Nevertheless she bore her sorrow with dignity, and was easy of speech with every man. Hrefna took no other husband after Kjartan. She lived but a little while after coming to the north, and the tale goes that she died of a broken heart. Chapter XLI. Osvif's sons are banished. Kjartan's body lay in state for a week in Herdholt. Thorstein Egilson had had a church built at Berg. He took the body of Kjartan home with him, and Kjartan was buried at Berg. The church was newly consecrated, and as yet hung in white. Now time wore on towards the Thornus Thing, and the award was given against Osvif's sons, who were all banished the country. Money was given to pay the cost of their going into exile, but they were forbidden to come back to Iceland so long as any of Olaf's sons, or Asgeir, Kjartan's son, should be alive. For Gudlog, the son of Osvif's sister, no wergild atonement should be paid, because of his having set out against, and laid ambush for, Kjartan. Neither should Thorolf have any compensation for the wounds he had got. Olaf would not let Bolli be prosecuted, and bade him ransom himself with a fine. This Halldor and Steinthur, and all the sons of Olaf, liked mightily ill, and said it would go hard with Bolli if he was allowed to stay in the same countryside as themselves. Olaf said that would work well enough as long as he was on his legs. There was a ship in Bjornhaven which belonged to Odd, and Cable Hound. He was at the thing, and said, as matters stand, the guilt of these men will be no less in Norway, so long as any of Kjartan's friends are alive. Then Osvif said, You, Cable Hound, will be no soothsayer said in this matter, for my sons will be highly accounted of among men of high degree, whilst you, Cable Hound, will pass this summer into the power of trolls. Odd and Cable Hound went out a voyage that summer, and the ship was wrecked amongst the Faroe Isles, and every man's child on board perished, and Osvif's prophecy was thought to have come thoroughly home. The sons of Osvif went abroad that summer, and none ever came back again. In such a manner the blood suit came to an end that Olaf was held to have shown himself all the greater a man, because where it was due, in the case of the sons of Osvif, to wit, he drove matters home to the very bone, but spared Bolli for the sake of their kinship. Olaf thanked men well for the help they had afforded him. By Olaf's counsel, Bolli bought the land at Tongue. It is told that Olaf lived 3 winters after Kjartan was slain. After he was dead, his sons shared the inheritance he left behind. Halldor took over the manor of Herdholt. Thorgerd, their mother, lived with Halldor. She was most hatefully minded towards Bolli, and thought the reward he paid for his fostering a bitter one. Chapter XLVIII. The killing of Thorkel of Goat. Peaks in the spring Bolli and Gudrun set up house, holding at Laxdale Tongue, and it soon became a stately one. Bolli and Gudrun begat a son. To that boy a name was given, and he was called Thorlake. He was early a very fine lad, and a right nimble one. Halldor Olafsson lived at Herdholt, as has before been written, and he was in most matters at the head of his brothers. The spring that Kjartan was slain Thorgerd Egil's daughter placed a lad to her with Thorkel of Goat, Peaks, and the lad herded sheep there through the summer. Like other people, he was much grieved over Kjartan's death. He could never speak of Kjartan if Thorkel was near, for he always spoke ill of him, and said he had been a white man and of no heart. He often mimicked how Kjartan had taken his death wound. The lad took this very ill, and went to Herdholt, and told Halldor and Thorgerd, and begged them to take him in. Thorgerd bade him remain in his service till the winter. The lad said he had no strength to bear being there any longer. And you would not ask this of me, if you knew what burn I suffer from all this. Then Thorgerd's heart turned at the tale of his grief, and she said that as far as she was concerned, she would make a place for him there. Halldor said, "Give no heed to this lad, he is not worth taking in earnest." Then Thorgerd answered, "The lad is of little account." Says she, "But Thorkel has behaved evilly in every way in this matter, for he knew of the ambush the men of Laugar laid for Kjartan, and would not warn him, but made fun and sport of their dealing together, and has since said many unfriendly things about the matter. But it seems a matter far beyond you brothers ever to seek revenge where odds are against you, now that you cannot pay out for their doing such scoundrels as Thorkel is." Halldor answered little to that, but bade Thorgerd do what she liked about the lad's service. A few days after Halldor rode from home, he and sundry other men together, he went to Goat Peaks and surrounded Thorkel's house. Thorkel was led out and slain, and he met his death with the utmost cowardice. Halldor allowed no plunder, and they went home when this was done. Thorgerd was well pleased over this deed, and thought this reminder better than none. That summer all was quiet, so to speak, and yet there was the greatest ill will between the sons of Olaf and Bolli. The brothers bore themselves in the most unyielding manner towards Bolli, while he gave in to his kinsmen in all matters as long as he did not lower himself in any way by so doing, for he was a very proud man. Bolli had many followers and lived richly, for there was no lack of money. Steinthur, Olaf's son, lived in Danasted in Salmon River, Dale. He had for wife Thurid Asger's daughter, who had before been married to Thorkel Kuggi. Their son was Steinthur, who was called Stone Grig. Chapter XLVIII. Thorgerd's egging A.D. 1006, the next winter after the death of Olaf Haskaldsson, Thorgerd, Egil's daughter, sent word to her son Steinthur that he should come and meet her. When the mother and son met, she told him she wished to go up west to Soaby and see her friend Aud. She told Halldor to come too. They were 5 together, and Halldor followed his mother. They went on till they came to a place in front of the homestead of Laxdale Tongue. Then Thorgerd turned her horse towards the house and asked, "What is this place called?" Halldor answered, "You ask this, mother, not because you don't know it. This place is called Tongue. Who lives here?" Said she. He answered, "You know that, mother." Thorgerd said and snorted, "I know that well enough." She said, "Here lives Bolli, the slayer of your brother, and marvellously unlike your noble kindred you turn out in that you will not avenge such a brother as Kjartan was. Never would Egil, your mother's father, have behaved in such a manner, and a piteous thing it is to have dolts sons, indeed. I think it would have suited you better if you had been your father's daughter, and had married. For here, Halldor, it comes to the old saw, no stock without a duffer, and this is the ill luck of Ol, if I see most clearly, how he blundered in begetting his sons. This I would bring home to you, Halldor," says she, "because you look upon yourself as being the foremost among your brothers. Now we will turn back again, for all my errand here was to put you in mind of this, lest you should have forgotten it already." Then Halldor answered, "We shall not put it down as your fault, mother, if this should slip out of our minds. By way of answer, Halldor had few words to say about this, but his heart swelled with wrath towards Bolli. The winter now passed, and summer came, and time glided on towards the Thing. Halldor and his brothers made it known that they will ride to the Thing. They rode with a great company, and set up the booth Olaf had owned. The Thing was quiet, and no tidings to tell of it. There were at the Thing from the north the Willowdale men, the sons of Gudmund Salmundsson. Bardi Gudmundsson was then 18 winters old. He was a great and strong man. The sons of Olaf asked Bardi, their nephew, to go home with them, and added many pressing words to the invitation. Hall, the son of Gudmund, was not in Iceland then. Bardi took up their bidding gladly, for there was much love between those kinsmen. Bardi rode west from the Thing with the sons of Olaf. They came home to Herdholt, and Bardi tarried the rest of the summer time.